Welcome to the Convinced God Moves podcast, where stories of struggle are met with hope. My name is Audra, and I still have this consuming desire to collect stories of struggle. I think this life is really hard, and I think we benefit from sharing our stories. It's been fun navigating this course of who I might interview, and it's led me to meet people. And today is a perfect example. I've seen Molly from a distance, but I haven't sat and heard multiple stories from her. And when I met with her to talk about what we might cover, I suggested a lot of things. And she just reached across the table and gently grabbed my arm and said, I know what I need to share. I know what story I want to share. How can I ever argue with that? So, sweet, gentle, wise Molly, I know you're going to enjoy hearing from her today. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be blessed. Molly, can you tell us a little bit about your family?
Of course. I was born and raised in a small town in Kerala, a state in the southern part of India. I was blessed to be brought up by Christian parents who are both educators. My mother and father worked as principals at different schools. After graduating from high school, I pursued my higher education in the northern region of India, earning degrees in biology and chemistry and later in education. I taught for a brief period of time before getting married to my husband, Abe. We met through an arranged marriage when he returned to India from the U.S. to attend his ill father. And at that time, he was attending a university in Eugene, Oregon. This year, in February, Abe and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
What a blessing. After moving to the U.S., I continued my education and taught high school for several years. My husband worked for J.C. Penney Company in their management, which led us to live in Oregon, California, Nevada, and now in Washington.
Oh, wow.
We have two children. Our son, Abe Jr., is a lead pastor in Sacramento, California, and he's married to Anna, my daughter-in-law. She's a vice principal of a Christian school over there. They have three wonderful children. Abraham, 21, pursuing his master's degree at Grand Canyon University, and twins, Andrew and Matthew, both 16, and high school juniors. Hard to believe. Angela, my daughter, is the principal of Evergreen Christian School here in Olympia, Washington, where I had the privilege of teaching alongside her for a short time. She's married to John, my son-in-law, who works as a senior investigator for the state of Washington. And they have two boys, Jonathan, who is 11, starting 6th grade this year, and Daniel, who is 8, entering into 2nd grade. All our grandchildren are passionate about one thing, soccer and other sports. That keeps them busy. And also, they love the Lord. Angela and her family, they live in Lacey, Washington, about 15 minutes from us.
Oh, you are
Thank
so
you for letting me share that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, I know a little bit about your story, and I'm excited to hear many details. So tell us about what happened to your son.
Yes. My son Abe loved playing golf from an early age. In 1998, at the age of 22, he was involved in a serious accident while golfing with friends in Gilroy, California. One of his friends lost control of the golf cart while driving downhill, and the cart flipped. And Abe was ejected and landed on his head, breaking his neck and fracturing his 3rd and 4th vertebrae.
So what did you do when you found out about this accident?
You know, when we received this news, just minutes after the accident, I was at work, as was my husband, when we got a call from Abe's employer informing us that he had been in a serious accident and was being airlifted to Santa Clara Medical Center in California. Immediately, I contacted my husband. We both rushed home, where we prayed fervently, then made numerous phone calls. My employer allowed me to take as much time off as needed. At that time, we were living in a small town in Elko, Nevada. They had limited flight options to California. The next available flight was at 8 a.m. the following morning. So my husband, daughter, and I packed our bags and drove 9 hours to Gilroy, California, where Abe was.
And then vertebrae is broken. So
Yes.
what is his diagnosis?
His diagnosis was he was quadriplegic. He had the similar accident like Christopher Reeves, if you know who he was. No movement from the neck down, especially on the left side of the body. However, many believers around the world began praying for Abe Jr. One of the verses that God had given me earlier on for him, I continue to hold on to that. That was from Philippians 1:6. I am certain that God, who began the good work within you, will continue his work until it is finally finished on the day when Jesus Christ returns. Miraculously, Audra, a few days after the accident, Abe started to feel slight movements on the left side of his body, and gradually more movement returned.
So good. So how long were you sitting at his hospital bed? How long were you staying there praying for healing?
You know, when we arrived around 2 a.m., right after his accident, this was June 8th, a close friend of us was sitting by Abe's bedside, ensuring he wasn't alone until we got there. We didn't know what to expect. He was only 22 years of age. We trusted in God's promise to never leave us. We stayed with him throughout the day, and sometime my husband and I, we even stayed overnight.
So how long did you stay in the town where he was receiving care?
I stayed in the area for almost 3 months. My husband and daughter, they had to return to Nevada for a short period of time for work and school, and then they were coming back on weekends.
Were you overwhelmed with fear? Did you have waves of discouragement with that many days?
Certainly. At times, yes. I held on to that strong faith that God would be with me no matter what. My faith became my anchor in the Lord.
Good, good. What happened when it was time to leave the hospital?
Yeah, unbelievable, unbelievable. The day Abe left the hospital, our hearts were overflowing with the gratitude, something that is still difficult for me to put into words. Abe, he went through surgeries to fuse his 3rd, 4th, and 5th vertebrae, and he had to wear a halo for a long period of time. We didn't know what the outcome would be once that halo was removed, but God miraculously restored 99% of movement on both sides of his body. Left was the first, and then the right part of the body. Although his medical records still list him as a quadriplegic, we know that it's only through God's miraculous healing power that he has regained so much function.
So not just his right and left arms, but even his right and left legs.
Yes, yes. So it was actually completely paralyzed neck down. Neck down, but more was affected in the left side.
So he walked out of the hospital?
And very few were able to walk out of the hospital without a wheelchair. And in fact, the hospital said, you are one of the miracles, even though they don't know that term, God's miracle, but they use that term because very few they can think of with his diagnosis, were able to walk out of the room.
Yeah. I also want you to explain when you say he had a halo.
Yes.
After his surgeries, what did that look like? What is a halo?
Halo was a metal device connected to the head. In other words, they had to put some holes in the part of the skull and with the screws, and this halo was attached so that way it can strengthen your neck muscles and the bones, I would imagine.
So frightening to see your boy.
Yes.
At 22.
22.
Molly, you say it with such gratitude and saying you're not sure even to find the words that God gave you a miracle. So my question for you is, what do you say to another parent who didn't get the miracle for their child that they earnestly prayed for?
I would say, Audra, your prayers have power. Even when you feel weak, never let go. In fact, I'm going through a situation right now with my husband having a pulmonary disease. He's not fully healed. Even when we go to the doctors say there isn't much change. But he was using oxygen. He was using a machine. But he hasn't used it for 11 weeks now. They do not know how to explain that. What is the miracle happening in his body? Although they do not use that word, but they say it is something unexplainable. But that, and I'm also ministering to a mom right now, Lydia, my friend. Her son, at the age of 45 or 46. Went through an accident 2 months ago, and he is diagnosed as paraplegic, waist down, no movement. And my son called him and prayed with him, and we are praying, and I'm telling her that God is in charge, and I'm giving her a lot of powerful healing scriptures, and never give up. God will give you the grace and mercy, and that's my prayer. I pray for him daily. I told her this is something I'm going to do. I'm going to do until he has the grace. And I'm praying for grace and mercy for this individual. God is still a God who made the heaven and the earth. Who are we to question him?
Absolutely.
He may give me something that for me it's unimaginable, but he's still God. He can do marvelous things.
Well, I was thinking about you too in this podcast. I so much want to encourage people who are struggling, and it's hard when you don't get the miracle. But how can we not talk about the miracles too?
Right. That's right.
Because sometimes God does rescue.
Yes.
And we're just blown away.
Right.
And we should speak of that.
Right.
And celebrate that.
I was going to tell you, we understand that the pain is real. And it's okay to feel hurt and sadness. Emotions aren't wrong. We pray that what has been felt as tragedy will somehow become a hope, a source of hope for others. Take time to spend time with God. He's our creator, and he is sovereign. Personally, I mentioned to you, even at times, even with all what I have seen, at times, something will happen in your life and you will say, Lord, where are you? And you forget what God did. That's something unimaginable. So Jeremiah 33:6 says, I will bring to you health and healing. I will heal you and reveal to you an abundance of prosperity and security. So we have to hold on to some of these verses often in our life. This is one of my favorite ones. Psalm 6:2. Be gracious to me, O Lord. I am languishing. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled. We can talk to God. We can find the scriptures just for our own situation. It doesn't have to be healing. Maybe you are going through something else in your life. maybe a family struggle, maybe a child who is going through, something that you did not expect, maybe a drug addiction. But there is a God who will not leave you. He will give you wisdom. Mm-hmm. And He will give you the ability to call upon God.
Mm-hmm. Now, I got to see Abe, your son, talk about his accident a while back. And I remember him mentioning that even though he was able to walk out of the hospital, there still was a road of recovery.
Yes.
And he mentioned a little bit about chronic pain.
Yes.
Was it headaches? Is that what he was struggling with in the years that followed?
Actually, neck pain.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's kind of, neck pain. It's arthritis.
Oh.
Even now when he is cold, especially in the cold climate, that's why he doesn't want to leave California. We want him to come here. But
that's a good excuse.
I know. He says cold makes it worse.
Oh.
But considering what he had gone through, this is nothing. Mm-hmm. I say this is nothing, but for him, that's big. Mm-hmm. This is something he can look back and say, Lord, you are still God. My pain may be bad, but it's nothing what it could have been. Mm-hmm. Rest of his life. Mm-hmm. And even he has a little problem on the hands. He is a musician. He plays piano. And that can also have a little bit problem. Tendonitis. That's a huge problem too. And I want to say that God is faithful. And I would like you to read Abe's book. It's called FORE, F-O-R-E. And he talks about finding faith when you are paralyzed by your circumstances. He is really funny. He talks about all what he went through. And sometimes I think it's too funny. And but he gives thanks to God and how God can lift him up. And God can lift anyone. Mm-hmm. That we will be paralyzed in our faith, but we can give God the glory for what He has done.
Good. I'll put a note on this podcast.
Yes.
Where people can find a link to get that book.
Yeah, he talks about the healing God gave him. Yet at the same time, he also talks about, what if you didn't get the healing? Mm-hmm. How do you go forward? But God will give you the grace and mercy to go through the situation. Mm-hmm. My faith in the Lord has increased so much. That doesn't mean that, I don't go through hard time in my life. I do. Even this week, my eyes, I had a cataract surgery a few months ago. My eyes has such irritation. I don't know what's causing. All I can think is enemy is bringing that because I'm going to have this podcast where I'm going to lift up God's name. Yeah. But you know what? I'm praying this way. Lord, don't let the enemy take over that miraculous power of healing because you are still on the throne.
I am really thankful for your story.
Thank you.
And especially your verses of encouraging us to cry out and ask for really big things, like not grow weary in asking for help and healing. And so maybe just to close out, would you read that Jeremiah verse one more time?
Yes. Jeremiah 33:6. Behold, I will bring to you health and healing, and I will heal you and reveal to you an abundance of prosperity and security. And this doesn't mean just the healing, physical healing. It can be your emotional healing. It can be your spiritual healing. It can be anything, not necessarily for you, maybe for your family, for your children, maybe for your friends. Anything we need, God has the answer for us.
This was all so good. Thank you, Molly.
Oh, thank you, Audra, for the time you gave me. I pray this will be a blessing.